أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. One of the most beautiful things in Islam is the sound of the Adhan. When you go to an Islamic country like Iraq or Iran or Turkey, you can't help but miss the sound of the Adhan several times during the day and during the night. Even at the Islamic centers in the West, in the UK or any other country, if you happen to enter a mosque at the time of prayer, you will find a beautiful recitation of the Adhan, the call to prayer. This call puts you at ease. You feel comfortable. It sounds sweet in your ears and falls deep in your heart. Extremely spiritual. No matter what you're doing, no matter what you're feeling, but you can't help feel serenity and peace and ease when you hear the sound of the Adhan. The Adhan is an act of worship. It's not just a call to prayer. It's a worship that brings us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why it's recommended for everyone to say the Adhan. Even if there is an official Adhan, it's recommended for others to stand up and say the Adhan as well, because it's an act of worship. It's recommended to repeat the Adhan. When you hear the Mu'adhan say Allahu Akbar, say with him Allahu Akbar. Hikayatul Quran, it's called, when you repeat the Adhan. For those that do not have children, one of the acts that are recommended for those that want children and cannot have children is to recite the Adhan loudly. Allah will give them children. When a child is born, the first words in Islam, the first words that he's supposed to hear is what? The Adhan and the Iqamah. The first words that are supposed to go in his ears is Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Allah is the greatest. Or Allah is great. And I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Just a couple of minutes ago, before I came, a lady called me, Scottish, and she wanted to convert into Islam. This was just 2 hours ago, maybe less. As I was pronouncing with her the Shahadatain, even though she does not understand Arabic, of course I translated to her the words. When I was repeating the words for her so that she may repeat after me, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I could hear her crying over the phone. These are powerful words that we put in our children when they're first born. The first words that they're supposed to hear when they're born is Allah is the greatest. And I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. and Muhammad is his messenger. So that the first days that the child starts his life, he starts it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he ends it with Allah. Now every adhan has a salah. The adhan that we say in the ears of the child, where's its salah? There's the adhan and the iqamah, but where's the salah? The salah is made once his spirit comes out of his body and he dies. Salat al-mayyit. For every adhan there is a salah, and that adhan has its salah. The salah is after death. And this is supposed to mean something, my dear friends. This is supposed to mean something. The time from adhan to salah is how long? How long is it? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? This gives us a message that life, you will feel that life is 5 minutes, 10 minutes long. No matter how long you live. Live 100 years. In fact, the longer you live, the more you will feel that your life was short. Life is short, my dear friends. We're reminded of this message every day. The important thing is, it doesn't matter how long life is short, how long it is, or how short it is, but what did we do in this life? What did we perform for the next life? What have I prepared for myself in the next life? When I go, will I see good things or will I see bad things? This is the important question that we need to ask ourselves. Thus, adhan is a very important aspect in Islam. It's a very important feature and it's an act of worship. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. How was the adhan legislated? When was the first adhan said and how was it legislated? Here, when we come to the various schools of thought in Islam, we see different opinions and different approaches to the legislation of the adhan. One opinion says that the adhan was revealed in a dream to one of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the name of Abdullah bin Zayd. Abdullah bin Zayd had a dream that he saw the adhan. When he woke up, he came and he told Rasulullah that I discovered a way to call people to the salah. Rasulullah told him how. He said, let us recite Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, till the end of the adhan. This is one opinion. And they mention another narration that it wasn't Abdullah bin Zayd, rather it was Ubay ibn Ka'b that saw this dream. And based on this dream, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam legislated the adhan. This is one opinion. Another opinion is the opinion of the school of thought of Ahl al-Bayt, that the adhan was not seen in a dream, but rather when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam ascended to the sky during al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, when he reached one of the skies, there was a salah, salatul jama'ah. There was a congregational salah. And the imam of the salah was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. And behind him praying were 124,000 prophets, excluding one, Rasulullah. All the other prophets stood behind Rasulullah to pray jama'ah. And the one who said the adhan was Jibreel. He stood and he said the adhan. And from that day, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam learned the adhan from the skies during al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. According to the school of thought of Ahl al-Bayt, there's another narration that states simply Jibreel descended to the sky, descended to earth, and he taught Rasulullah how to say the adhan. When we compare these two opinions, that the adhan was seen in a dream, or that Rasulullah learned the adhan during al-Isra wal-Mi'raj? Which makes more sense? Which is deemed more logical and more rational? Of course, the second opinion. That states Rasulullah was taught the adhan by Jibreel. Why? Because adhan is something extremely important in Islam. It's an act of worship. It's not possible that an act of worship would come in a dream, and not to the Prophet. If it was to the Prophet himself, this is understandable. Some prophets would receive revelations through what? Through dreams. Ibrahim alayhi salam was ordered to sacrifice his son Ismail in his dream. قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك فانظر ماذا ترى. Ibrahim alayhi salam tells his son Ismail that I saw in my dream, I'm sacrificing you, I'm slaughtering you. What do you say? Ismail knew that this dream was a form of revelation and a form of command. He told him, do as you're commanded. But the adhan was not revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream. Supposedly, someone else saw this. This is impossible, my dear friends. Islam is a greater religion than to say that its ideology or its practices, especially something as important as the adhan, to say that it's revealed in a dream, we do not accept this. Thus, we choose the second opinion that says Jibreel alayhi salam taught Rasulullah. This makes more sense, it's more logical. And the Ahlul Bayt took a position. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was asked, Ya ibn Rasulullah, what do you say about the dream? What do you say about the adhan? How was it legislated? Was it in a dream? Because there's an opinion that says that adhan was revealed in a dream. Rasulullah says no. Imam Sadiq says no. Inna deenullah a'azzu an yura fil manam. The religion of Allah is more sacred, it's more divine than to be seen in a dream. There are some people that base certain things on dreams, certain ideologies, certain practices on dreams. My dear friends, we're supposed to be more logical and more rational to base certain things on friends. Someone once came to me and he said, Sayyid, I think I'm a Sayyid. I told him, why do you think you're a Sayyid? He says, because I saw Fatima al-Zahra in my dream without wearing a hijab. She wasn't wearing a hijab. Thus, this could only mean that I'm a Sayyid, otherwise why isn't she wearing a hijab in her dream? I told him, you're right, you must be a Sayyid. You see, this doesn't work in Islam. You can't claim that you're a Sayyid or a Shaykh or whatever based on a dream. Especially the adhan. We cannot say that the adhan was revealed in a dream. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Now, what was the purpose of the legislation of the adhan? Why do we have the adhan in Islam? Is it just to hear a nice voice, to hear a beautiful voice recite, or does it have a philosophy behind it? Of course it does. Number one, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam needed a way to call Muslims to salah. He noticed that Christians have a way to call Christians to the church by ringing bells. Jews had a way of calling other Jews to the synagogue by blowing in horns. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam needed a way to call Muslims to the masjid for salah. And at that time, there was no WhatsApp for Rasulullah to send messages. There was no Twitter for Rasulullah to tweet about the time of salah. There was the adhan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated the adhan for people to know the times of salah. This is one. Number two, adhan is a spiritual appetizer, so to speak. You see, when we go to salah, we need something to draw us into the masjid. We want something to lure us inside the masjid. We want something to put us in the mood for salah. Have you seen some people when they go on romantic dates? Of course, married couples, not before marriage. Married couples, when they go on romantic dates, they go to an Italian restaurant or French. I don't know why, it's always either Italian or French. And the lights are dim, and there's soft music in the background. Why? So that it puts them in the mood. All to put them in the mood. When it comes to salah, Allah wants to put us into a romantic session, but a spiritually romantic session. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to draw us into salah. How? By the sound of the adhan. That beautiful sound. The beautiful spiritual sound of the adhan. It's supposed to bring us closer to salah. It puts you in the mood. If you're not in the mood to pray, now you're in the mood. If you're in an argument, or in a fight, or in a business meeting, but as soon as you hear the adhan, right away you get into the spiritual mood. Now you want to pray. If you're not in the mood to pray, now you're pulled in, no matter what you're doing. That is why most of us, when we hear the adhan, right away we feel comfortable. We feel serenity. We feel we're at peace, especially when we live in a materialistic, capitalistic society, when Allah has never mentioned, when it's all about making money, growing our business. As soon as we hear the adhan, it takes us away from that world. Immediately it takes us into a spiritual realm. We feel comfortable. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, when he would tell Bilal to say the adhan, what would he say? Have you seen some of us, especially during Ramadan, when we want to break our fast, but we have to pray Salatul Jama'ah before. So what do we tell the mu'adhin? Yalla, hurry up. Don't take too long. Say the adhan and come down quickly. We have to eat. But Rasulullah, when he would tell Bilal to say the adhan, he would say, Arahna ya Bilal. Arahna. Bring us comfort, ya Bilal. Rasulullah would look forward to the sound of adhan. I can imagine Rasulullah, when he would hear the sound of adhan, he would not speak, not like most of us. We hear the sound of adhan, we continue speaking and talking and texting and taking pictures and I don't know what. Rasulullah would be quiet. He would listen to that sound. It would come in his ears and sink in to his nafs, to his soul. It would affect him. Arahna ya Bilal. Yes, and interestingly, that this very important aspect of Islam, the adhan, it was not given to someone rich among the Arab. There were some that would fight for the adhan. They would say, why did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam give it to Bilal? Why didn't he give it to us? Especially during Fatah Mecca, at the conquest of Mecca, Rasulullah ordered Bilal to go on top of the Kaaba and stand over the Kaaba and say the adhan. There were some of the companions, so-called Muslims, one of them said that if my dad was alive, if my father was alive, to see the adhan being stated on the Kaaba, by whom? By someone black, he would die out of sadness. You see the hypocrisy? You see the bias? Yet Rasulullah insisted that the adhan be said by Bilal. Even if he's black, so what? He's not a human being. He's not a soul. Why do we look at his color? Look at his other features. Look at his soul. Look at his taqwa. Look at his piety. In fact, Bilal couldn't even say the adhan correctly. Instead of saying the sheen, he couldn't say ashhadu. He would say ashhadu. He couldn't say the sheen. It would come out as an S. People would come and tell him, Ya Rasulullah, choose someone who could say the adhan correctly. Ya Rasulullah refused. He would say, Sheenu Bilalin inda Allah, what? Sina. That the sheen of Bilal is or the scene of Bilal is a sheen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah doesn't care. Allah cares about who says the adhan and how he says it. He doesn't say it to show off, but he says it comes out of his heart. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Number 3, the adhan reaffirms our ideology. When we hear the adhan 5 times or 3 times out of the day, This reaffirms our ideology. But because what is it that we say in the Adhan? Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Aliyan Amir al-Mu'mineen Waliyullah. These things that we say in the Quran, these statements, these sentences, it reaffirms our ideology, our faith. If you start having doubts, as soon as you hear the Adhan, it reaffirms your faith. Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. For those that are too busy with their business and think that their business is the greatest, they're reminded Allah is the greatest. Those that are too busy with their children, they're reminded Allah is the greatest. No matter what you do, Allah remains the greatest in your life. We hear it time and time again, every day. So that it sinks in. So that these powerful words are instilled in our minds and our hearts. They go into our system. They flow in our body, our blood. For others, it's not these statements. What flows in our bodies and our systems is music. It's the words of, you fill in the blanks. It's the words of rappers and singers and entertainers. It's their words that sink in our minds and our hearts. Some people say, I hear a lot of youth, they say, why can't I get this song out of my head? This song is in my head. Obviously, if you've heard it 60 times that day, obviously it's not going to get out of your head. It's going to sink into your head. Islam wants the Adhan to sink into your head. Islam wants you to say, why can't I get the Adhan out of my head? Not the lyrics of I don't know who. Not music of I don't know who. Let the Adhan sink into our system and flow in our blood. These blessed words, these spiritual words. Let us live with them, not just hear them. Let's pay attention to them so that it reaffirms our ideology. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Number 4. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi lived with this nation for 24 years. 24 years of service. Non-stop service. He served this nation. He delivered the message. He guided them without asking anything for return. He didn't ask for a reward in return. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Say to them, Ya Rasulullah, Allah tells him, say to them that I do not ask you for anything in return. I ask you for no reward in return, except to love my family members. Rasulullah served diligently, consistently, with full determination. Yet what did he receive in return? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him something in return. Allah tells him, Ya Rasulullah, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ الَّذِي أَنْقَضَ ظَهْرَكَ وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. We raised your remembrance, Ya Rasulullah. Allah tells him. How did Allah raise the remembrance of Rasulullah? In the Adhan, when we say every day, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allah raises remembrance. You have to remember Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whether you love him or you hate him. Whether you love his progeny or you hate his progeny. Whether you follow his sunnah or you do not follow his sunnah. Even if you kill his progeny, you still have to say, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We raise his remembrance, Allah says. Whether you're in America or Europe or Australia or in Saudi Arabia or Iraq or even in the Philippines or China, wherever you go, you hear people saying, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. This is a gift to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We honor Rasulullah for his tremendous efforts. We recognize him in our adhan. Yet, my dear friends, we don't just recognize Rasulullah in our words, but in our practices as well. And in our actions. We emulate Rasulullah. We follow him. We do what he did, what he did. We follow him in his akhlaq. Not just by saying Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah 10 times a day, more or less, and you claim to be a follower of Rasulullah. No. For some youth today, you want to see who they follow, who's their role models? Go on Twitter and see who they follow. And you'll be shocked at the people that they follow. The singers and the entertainers and the pop stars. Are these people that are worthy of being followed? Are these our role models today? The people who are the farthest away from Allah? The people who are the farthest away from a happy life? The people who are most known to do drugs and are alcoholics and are caught for DUIs, driving under the influence? Are these people role models for us? With the tattoos and with the piercings and the troubles in their life? Are these people worthy of being implemented, emulated, and followed? When we say Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, this is a lesson for us. That let's bring in Rasulullah in our lives and let's follow him, let's emulate him, let's learn from his akhlaq. The akhlaq that the Quran describes, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. صلوا على محمد وآله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The Adhan, my dear friends, is a sign of the power of Islam. The Adhan shows the power of Islam. It's a sign of the power and the immense control that Islam has. Because the Adhan turns all of us into soldiers. The Adhan, as soon as you hear it, we become soldiers. We rush to Salah. We drop everything that we're doing, even if we're in an important meeting, and we go to Salah like a soldier that is called by his commander, by his commanding officer. It shows the power of the Adhan. It shows the power of Islam. Mustafa Ataturk, the former president of Turkey, who actually destroyed Turkey. He turned Turkey into a secular government, into a secular country. Imagine, Turkey was the capital of the Islamic Khilafah. Turkey one day ruled the entire nation, almost. It ruled all the way from China, the east, all the way till parts of Europe. Till some parts of Europe. And the capital was where? The capital was Istanbul. The capital was Turkey. It was the capital of the Islamic world. It was one of the greatest nations in the world. Yet it became a secular government. It became a secular country. This is a lesson. This should be a lesson for all the countries. That no matter how religious you are, one day you might become secular. Don't think that this won't happen to our country or this country. It won't happen to our youth in our nations. In Istanbul, in Turkey, the hijab was banned. A country that would export the hijab, that would export Islam, Islam was banned in that country. The hijab was banned, prayer was banned, and the adhan was banned. Isn't this a lesson? Isn't this so tragic? That it happened, if it could happen in Turkey, in the capital of the Islamic world, it could happen in any other country. It could happen everywhere. It's very sad. When we hear this, it's extremely sad, extremely depressing. Among the things that were banned in Turkey was the adhan. The beautiful mosques in Turkey. Have you been to Turkey? Have you seen the beautiful mosques? The beautiful domes, the beautiful minarets? These minarets were empty of the adhan. These minarets would sit there depressing. The sound of adhan would not come. This was a day. But then, after several decades, the sound of the adhan came back to Istanbul. And it came back to Turkey. And it came back to those minarets, those beautiful minarets. People heard the sound of the adhan. You know what they did? They started slaughtering sheep out of happiness, to rejoice, to celebrate that event. They started sacrificing sheep. They started passing out sweets. They began to celebrate just at the sound of the adhan in their minarets. Isn't that powerful? Doesn't this show you the power of Islam? Until today, when you go to Turkey, you will hear the beautiful sound of the Adhan in the minarets. Mustafa Ataturk was not able to destroy Islam, and nor were his predecessors, and nor will be the people that came after him and the people that will come in the future. They can destroy some elements, but Islam will come back. This is a lesson. Ibn Sina, another story that shows the power of the Adhan. Ibn Sina was a well-known scholar. He was a master of all the fields: math, science, philosophy, logic, the Arabic language, theology. Ibn Sina had mastered all of these sciences. He had a student that was extremely fond of him. His student was in fact obsessed with him. There are some students that become obsessed with their teachers. This is very normal. The student, this loyal student, he told his teacher, Ibn Sina, he told him, why don't you declare yourself as a prophet? Tell people that you're a prophet. And everyone would believe you. Who would not believe you? Ibn Sina told him, no. There's no way I could claim I'm a prophet. He told him, why? He said, I'll show you. I'll prove to you why I can't claim myself as a prophet. It was a winter night. It was extremely cold, and it was snowing. There was a well of water outside. Ibn Sina told his student, go get me some water from the well. It was in the middle of the night. The student told him, it's freezing cold. It's snowing. You want me to get you water in the middle of the night? He said, khalas, you don't need to do it. The student didn't want to do it in the first place. Told him, don't do it. After a couple of minutes, they heard the sound of the Adhan. Ibn Sina called his student and said, come, look at the window. What do you see? They saw a couple of people, several people. They left their homes in the middle of the night at the time of Fajr. It's still dark. It's freezing cold. People left. They came to this well to perform their wudu at the sound of the Adhan. The Adhan got them to leave their beds in the middle of the night. When it's cold, when it's freezing, they went outside to perform wudu. He told them, see, this is the job of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the job of a real prophet. I asked you to go get me some water. You refused. But look at the power of this Adhan that was legislated by a true prophet, by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the power of the Adhan. They say that once in Turkey, in Istanbul, a man was walking in the middle of the night. He saw a police officer hurting a young woman. He grabbed her, he took her into a dark alleyway, and he wanted to hurt her. The young man, or this man, he wanted to go and rescue this young lady, but that police officer had a gang. He wasn't just a police officer, he was a general. He had officers, they kicked him away. They didn't allow him to rescue that young lady. But he felt bad. He felt guilty. This young lady is in big trouble. He needs to help her. He needs to rescue her. What should I do? He thought of an idea. He went on top of a building and he started to say the Adhan. And it wasn't time for Salah. It was in the middle of the night. It wasn't time for Salah. As soon as he said the Adhan, people started leaving their homes, their apartments, their flats. They came outside and they started going towards the masjid. They came inside this empty alleyway. This empty alleyway was no longer empty. It was full of people that want to go to the masjid. This commander, or this general, was forced to let this girl free. The Khalifa at the time, he said, this is not the Adhan. He said, this is not time for the Adhan. Who's saying the Adhan when it's not time for the Adhan? Go bring me the person. They went and they brought this young man. He told him, why did you say the Adhan when it's not even time for the Adhan? He said, because I saw a young lady in trouble. By whom? By this man. They brought the man, they brought the young lady. She testified, and that man was put to death. He was executed. All by the barakah of this adhan, by the power of the adhan. Look at the power, immense power that it has. You see, I stated that it turns us into soldiers indeed. The adhan turns us into soldiers. When we hear the adhan, we're supposed to leave everything that we're doing and go directly to salah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, this beautiful aspect of Islam, the adhan, which is very important, very respected in Islam, yet very controversial at the same time. Because there are certain statements and sentences in the adhan that are debated. There are some that say it is part of the adhan, others say it is not part of the adhan. What are these sentences? Three main sentences that are controversial parts of the adhan. Number one, حي على خير العمل. The followers of Ahlul Bayt believe that this statement is part of the adhan, and that it was recited by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or by Bilal during the lifetime of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was part of the adhan, and it also existed during the days of Abu Bakr, and it also existed during the days of Umar ibn Khattab. Yet he banned this statement from the adhan. Another school of thought, the other schools of thought say that Hayya ala khair al-amal is not part of the adhan, and it was never recited by Bilal during the days of Rasulullah. However, to support the argument of the Ahlul Bayt and the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, there's a narration, there's a story mentioned in Sharh al-Tajreed by its author Al-Qawshaji. Al-Qawshaji is a respected scholar from the Sunni school of thought. His book Sharh al-Tajreed is a well-known book of theology in the Sunni school of thought. It's taught in their seminaries. There's a story mentioned that Umar ibn al-Khattab, in one of his lectures, in one of his sermons, during the days of his Khilafah, he announced, he said, ثلاثة كنا على عهد رسول الله وأنا أحرمهما وأنهى عنهما وأعاقب عليهما متعة النساء ومتعة الحج وحي على خير العمل. Umar is quoted saying in this book, in Sharh al-Tajreed by Al-Qawshaji, by a prominent Sunni scholar, that three things existed during the days of Rasulullah and practiced during the days of Rasulullah, yet I forbid them. I ban them. Umar ibn Khattab apparently saw that he had the authority to legislate things that existed during the days of Rasulullah. He has the authority to ban and to stop. Apparently he saw that he has the right to legislate. Did he have such a right or not? This is not our topic tonight. Three things were practiced and implemented during the days of Rasulullah, yet I banned them. What is it? The mut'ah of Hajj, the mut'ah of marriage, and Hayya ala khair al-amal. Now, why is it that Umar ibn Khattab banned this statement, Hayya ala khair al-amal, from the adhan? What does it mean, Hayya ala khair al-amal? Come on to the best of deeds, the best of actions. What is the best of deeds? What is the best of actions? Some say that this means the salah. The salah is the best of deeds. The salah is the best of actions. And because the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab was known for its conquests, Umar led a lot of conquests to Bayt al-Maqdis, towards the Roman Empire, towards the Persian Empire. And since he wanted people to be engaged in jihad and to perform jihad and not to busy themselves with salah, so he decided to take out Hayya ala khair al-amal from the adhan. However, when we take a closer look, we see that if this was his motive, to let people join the jihad and lead the conquest and expand the Islamic nation, if this was his motive, what would be the best motive to get people to perform jihad? To eradicate salah? To take out the statement and not to encourage people to pray? Or is it that salah teaches us self-sacrifice? It is salah that teaches us jihad. It is salah that strengthens our faith with Allah and teaches us that this life is not the end, but that there is a life after this life. Which one is it? Of course, it's salah that puts in us motivation to sacrifice and to perform jihad and to work and to struggle. It is from Hayya ala khayr al-amal. This is one of the controversial statements of the Adhan. Another controversial statement is at-tathweeb. What is at-tathweeb? To say as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm in the morning Adhan. Again, there's a debate. Is this part of the Adhan or is this not part of the Adhan? According to the Sunni school of thought, there are various narrations. Some narrations that they narrate in the Sunni books of hadith, they say that the statement, as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm, was seen by Abdullah ibn Zayd in his what? In his dream. That is why it's part of the Adhan. Other narrations say that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, this is their narrations, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi ordered Bilal to say it in his morning Adhan. Other narrations say that Rasulullah asked Bilal to come and say the Adhan. They told him Bilal is sleeping. When he was told that Bilal is sleeping, Rasulullah stated, as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm. That salah is better than sleeping. Go and call him. Thus, their own narrations are contradictory. They contradict each other. That is why some scholars, some respected scholars from the school of thought, have come up with the conclusion that because these narrations contradict each other, we cannot accept as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm in the Adhan. Because it could be a bid'ah, it could be an innovation. And because there's a possibility it could be an innovation, it is best not to say it in the Adhan. When we come to the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt, we see that it does not exist, that it was not stated by Rasulullah, it was not stated by Bilal. Rather, we find a narration in Muwatta Malik. Imam Malik ibn Anas, a very well-known, one of the four main Sunni Imams of fiqh, in his famous book Al-Muwatta, he mentions that one day Umar ibn al-Khattab was sleeping in the middle of the night. Someone comes and wakes him up for salah, and he tells him, as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm. When Umar woke up, he liked this statement, and he said, ij'aluha fi salatikum, put it in your adhan. This is in Muwatta Malik. This is not in Bihar al-Anwar, this is not in Al-Kafi, this is in Muwatta Malik, written by Malik ibn Anas, that Umar ibn Khattab was the first to establish this statement in the Adhan, as-salatu khayrun min al-nawm. And finally, one of the controversial statements and the most heated arguments are over the third testimony in the Adhan. Ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah. Is that part of the Adhan or not? Is it an innovation, a bid'ah or not? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Here we see that scholars of Ahlul Bayt, of course Sunni scholars believe that it's an innovation and it's a bid'ah. When we come to the scholars of the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, we see them divided on this subject. Some feel that it's an innovation, it's a bid'ah, and it should be taken out. Others feel that it's not a bid'ah. However, it is not part of the Adhan, it's not a juz, but it could be recited. As long as you say it without the intention that it's part of the Adhan, that's fine. As long as you do not feel that it's part of the Adhan, it's fine. Others feel that it's recommended, and there are some contemporary scholars that say it is part of the Adhan, as we shall see. For example, we have narrations. Now there are some that say, why do we say it? We have some narrations by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He says, whenever you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, say, Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. صلى على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
The Imam says, don't divide them, put them together. When you testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, also testify that Ali is his representative. Say it. The Quran says, إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. This verse is regarding whom? This verse is regarding Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Yes, we also have some narrations that say that during Ghadir Khum, at Ghadir Khum, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi grabbed the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen and told them, من كنت مولاه فهذا علي مولاه اللهم والي من والاه وعادي من عاداه وانصر من نصره واخذل من خذله. He finished his lecture, and the Muslims, those who had gathered at Ghadir Khum, whom narrations say there were 100,000 of the Sahaba, they came and gave him allegiance. They gave Amir al-Mu'mineen allegiance. Amir al-Mu'mineen signaled to Bilal to say the Adhan. In other narrations, he signaled to Abu Dhar to say the Adhan. When Abu Dhar or Bilal said the Adhan, he said, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. At Ghadir Khum, in the presence of Rasulullah, in the presence of all of the companions, one of the companions, he came and he said, Ya Rasulullah, is this from you or is this from Allah? Do you see the question? The question in itself is kufr, it's disbelief. Because the Quran says, وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. Rasulullah does not speak from his own personal desires. It's all from revelation. إِنَّهُ وَإِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He knows that everything is from Allah. What is it from? What came from Rasulullah by himself, from personal taste? Rasulullah told him, weren't you here? Weren't you here just a couple of minutes ago? Didn't you hear the lecture? Didn't you hear the sermon? Didn't you yourself give allegiance to Ali ibn Abi Talib? Thus, some narrations say that it was stated by Bilal in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, our scholars are divided on this subject of the third testimony. Some scholars feel that it should be taken out and it should not be stated. There are some prominent scholars that have this opinion. One of them is the famous scholar As-Sayyid Abdul Hossein Sharaf al-Din, the author of Al-Muraja'at, this very well-known book. He was of the opinion that Ash-Shahada Thalitha is not part of the Adhan. My father went and visited As-Sayyid Abdul Hussein Sharaf al-Din in his house in Sur, in Lebanon, in the city of Sur. He visited him. My father was only 22 years old. He visited this grand scholar, and he stayed at his home for a couple of days. My father says that I asked him, I told him, Sayyidina, what is your opinion on the third testimony? He said that when I pray by myself, I do not say it. When I pray by myself, I do not say it. Thus, you have this opinion. Other scholars say that there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it is mustahab, and that it should be recited, but it is not part of the adhan. And there are other scholars, contemporary scholars. One of them is one of our teachers in the city of Najaf, Ayatollah Sheikh Muhammad As-Sanad. He is of the opinion that Ash-Shahada Thalith, the third testimony, is part of the adhan. It is part of the adhan. It's just as equal to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah or Hayya ala Salah or Hayya ala Falah. Thus, these are various opinions among the school of Talib Ahl al-Bayt. The most prominent opinion that it is not part of the adhan, yet it is recommended to recite because of the hadith that say whenever you say the first testimony, And the second testimony, say the third testimony as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Tonight in Kufa, the people of Kufa, the citizens of Kufa, they hear the Adhan of Amir al-Mu'mineen one last time. For one last time. Amir al-Mu'mineen would say the Adhan himself. The people of Kufa would wake up to the sound of the Adhan of Amir al-Mu'mineen every morning. To that beautiful voice, that spiritual voice of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Tonight, little did they know that tonight or this morning, it will be the last time that the people of Kufa will hear the Adhan of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. On a night like this, the eve of the 19th, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was fasting. He comes to the house of his daughter Kulthum to break his fast tonight. He's the guest of Kulthum. He comes to her house, he breaks his fast. Kulthum provides him with iftar, with food, and she puts a bit more food than the Imam is used to eating. Amir al-Mu'mineen was very disappointed. He said, what is this? What is this oppression, my dear daughter, Ya Kulthum? She said, what have I done? I've only added more food to you. He said, yes, is there greater oppression than this? You give me more food to eat, for me to eat more? I wish to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with an empty stomach. Amir al-Mu'mineen eats something very little on a night like this. Something that not even made him full. And then the Imam turns to his mihrab and he prays Salatul Layl for one last time. Amir al-Mu'mineen speaks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a night like this. He says his munajat, he says his prayers, Mawla, Ya Mawla, Anta al-Qawiyyu wa ana al-Dha'if, wa hal yarhamu al-Dha'ifa إلا القوي مولاي يا مولاي مولاي يا مولاي. Amir al-Mu'mineen remained in his mihrab tonight. He remained seeking forgiveness from Allah. He remained performing Salatul Layl. He remained saying his munajat. When it was time for Fajr, Amir al-Mu'mineen left his house. His belt got stuck at the door. His belt was unwrapped. He grabs his belt again. He puts his belt back on. And he recites, اشدد حيازيمك للموت فإن الموت لاقيك ولا تجزع من الموت إذا حل بواديك. Amir al-Mu'mineen leaves the house of his daughter Kulthum. He enters the masjid, he goes on the roof in the minara and he says Adhan, meaning, O people of Kufa, this is the last time you will hear my voice. Amir al-Mu'mineen comes down to the masjid. He sees Ibn Muljam sleeping. He tells him, get up, Ya Hada, don't sleep like this. Ibn Muljam was sleeping on his stomach. He tells him, this is the sleep of the shaitan. Get up and pray Salat al-Fajr. Ibn Muljam gets up. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes towards his mihrab. He says, Nafilatul Subh, the 2 rak'ahs before Salat al-Fajr. And then he starts his salah. He begins to pray, Allahu Akbar. And then he goes for ruku', Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdih. And then the Imam goes for his sujood, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. When he raises his head, Ibn Muljam was standing behind him. He takes out his poisonous sword and he strikes the Imam on his head. The Imam, his blood begins to gush from his head. It comes down his face. It comes down his beard. When he sees his blood, he says, Fuztu wa Rabbil Ka'bah. By Allah, by the owner of the house, I have won, I have become victorious. The Imam falls in his mihrab. The people of Kufa, all of a sudden, they hear a voice in the sky saying, تهدمت والله أركان الهدى قتل علي المرتضى قتله أشقى الأشقياء. The people of Mecca rushed to the masjid. Al-Hassan and Hossein rushed to the masjid only to find their father sitting in the mihrab, lying in the mihrab, drenched in his blood.